Today we're looking at Star Wars Beyond Victory. This game is out today. I've had the chance to play it for just a bit, and I got things to say about it. This episode is sponsored by VR Rock. More from them in just a bit. Now, at a glance, this is going to look a lot like Pod Racers 64 from back in the day. And at times, it really does feel like that. At times, and specifically when you're racing, which is, you would think is the meat and potatoes of this game, it's pretty cool. All of the telltale mechanics are there, and if you were a fan of that game initially, then this is going to scratch that itch. Need this fantasy. This follows a character named Volo Bolas under the mentorship of Sebulba, taking place during the era of Solo, a Star Wars story. It features an adventure mode for a story-driven experience, an arcade mode for classic pod racing on a virtual holotable, and a playset mode, which acts as a sandbox for creating custom Star Wars scenes with digital action figures and vehicles. So that's kind of the basis of what we're working with. Before anything else, I'm going to say that I often have an issue with MR mixed reality games, in so much that they require this granular room scan that takes into account all the objects and all the textures to really immerse you in that experience, and I typically go into it feeling underwhelmed. Games that might otherwise be amazing in mixed reality often come off as gimmicky to me just because of the limitations of that room scan. That's it. But this game does not require so much. It's more of a tabletop type thing. It's not going to interact with different objects in your room. In my case, this video you're seeing here, it's me sitting on the bed, and the whole map is hovering just above my lap on the bed. And to that, it does its job well. It works great. And they take advantage of a lot of gimmicks to really widen the scope of the world that you're experiencing. And they do it in such a way that when you're maneuvering this third-person character around the map, you can run around and tilt the camera as if it was just a tabletop game. And as he exits some area on the board, then the world kind of appears and materializes as he's walking. But if a giant ship comes down, as seen here, then it kind of expands, and while you have this small play space, which you can adjust and widen and make bigger, that thing with its wingspan will kind of engulf your entire room, and it's very cool. And so before I get into the pod racing aspect, I have to talk about just this game and what it's like launching it and getting to the stuff that you want, which is the pod racing. And that is there's a whole story-driven thing here. You know, you're just an up-and-coming guy that knows he can race, but you're without a ship, and someone comes along and they take care of you and say, win for us. And there's this dichotomy of, are you the good guy or the bad guy, and whose side are you really on? And there are these conflicting narratives that leave the plot open. And so it expands from there, and you just want to race, but who are you really racing for, I think. But before you can get to that, you know, as I said, you're this guy who's kind of a loner, and someone comes along and offers you the chance to race, offers you a vehicle, and all the ships and the tech and the world building is going to be familiar to you if you're coming from pod racers, if you're familiar with the Star Wars ecosystem, it's all there. But I found in this game, 45 minutes, I want to race, and instead it's me walking around doing trivial chores and finding people to talk to, finding parts, repairing the ship, welding this and that, meeting the necessary people to set this race into motion, which is great for a story-driven, escalating story that's bound to bring hours and hours of playtime. Never mind the fact that you have these different play modes like arcade versus campaign. And in this instance, I'm only talking about the campaign. But in that, it's a lot of talking. It's just, I want to get to the racing, and they won't let me. There's so much. But while I'm waiting to race, while I wish that I had just been able to jump into a vehicle and start kicking butt, along the way, you do take note that the characters appear to be mo-capped, motion captured. The acting, the voice acting, the character animations, they're all very cool. And I mentioned the fact that, you know, you might have a ship come into frame and its wingspan fills your entire room, and relative to the small board that you've been playing with up to this point, it's enormous, it's cool, and I think they really did a great job at incorporating that kind of stuff to give you this cinematic experience. I think if nothing else, it's going to take it from this cool pod racing thing, which would have been awesome all by itself, but expand it into a story-driven thing where there's some emotional weight behind some of the decisions that are made leading up to the races, and there's stuff to lose, and in a sense, what kind of moral character do you have? Like, it's really fleshing out all of this stuff. And so story-wise, it's cool, but I'm going to end it on, I just wanted to race. I just wanted to get into it, and there's a lot going on, and I feel like it's kind of bogged down. But once you're in the race, it's pretty nifty. Just like when you're third person walking around and you take a left and the world kind of materializes as you walk, the same thing is true for these race events, to where you have a platform in front of you, and there are 4 corners to the platform. You can grab 2 of them, and then, as you'll be familiar with any VR tabletop type thing, you can grab it and shrink it and make it bigger and tilt it and put it however you want. And from there, you're looking third person at your pod racing craft, and just like Pod Racer 64, it's going to be very familiar. You're racing, moving quickly through these canyons and crowded, rocky terrains, and you've got a boost function, and you've got a leap function that throws you into the air and thrusts you forward. It's probably my favorite move in this game. The whole racing system is very cool. And at other times, instead of pressing A to kind of thrust forward and up and over some rocky terrain, you can actually, depending on the circumstances, drop weapons and fire missiles and Mario Kart-ish compared to what was previously offered up through Pod Racer 64. So there's some battle components to it as well, not just avoiding these obstacles, but kicking ass and taking names as well. VR Rock was kind enough to sponsor this episode. I deeply appreciate them. I love their product. And in this instance, I think it's applicable to talk about the MetaQuest 3 lenses that they offer, but they also offer lenses for the X-Real and, in short order, lenses for the Oakley Meta smart glasses, which I can't wait to talk about. That's going to be another thing another time. But if you need prescription lenses and you're not currently using them with the MetaQuest 3, or if you find it difficult to apply them to the MetaQuest 3, I suggest you check out VR Rock down below. These guys make easy work of installing them. They use magnets so that you plug in these rings around the lenses, and you can see 3 magnets right there. And once you have those installed, they just snap on, so that in my case, my wife wears glasses, I don't, and I don't want her scratching up my lenses when she puts on the headset. It's happened before with the Quest 2, but I want her to have a comfortable experience. And so, having lenses that attach as simply as these do are a game changer for her and for me. You simply go to their website, input the prescription that you need, and in short order, they send you the lenses. And they produce these lenses across a number of headsets. As I mentioned, the Quest 2, Quest 3, X-Real glasses, and much, much more. There is not a more affordable and convenient prescription lens offered by anyone else. Use the code BRINGHURSTVR to save 10% off everything from VR Rock, and it's a great way of telling them that I sent you. Thank you again to them for sponsoring this episode, and now back to it. And I wish the focus of this video had been all on pod racers and just the speed of it and how enveloping it was and cool to be moving this quickly through this tight terrain. And it is cool, and I had a really good time doing it, but there's not much more to say on that except to say that it's cool, it's fast, it feels familiar, and it's good to have this back again. Contrary-wise, because this terrain is kind of materializing in front of you and you can't see more than, and for the record, I widened the map at some point so that it filled my entire room, and that made it much easier to kind of keep an eye on my craft and see what I was doing, but you still have like 1 second of clearance before you've met the end of the terrain that you can see, and it keeps materializing, and so you're moving quick, but you can't see what's coming up ahead, and it does make for a disorienting, frantic experience. Whereas in the original Pod Racer 64, you could, I mean, it might not render completely, but for the most part, you'd have a pretty clear view of what was coming up, even 6 seconds down the line, and you don't have that with this. And I feel like that experience takes it from really fun, really cool, and taking away a little bit from the experience. It almost feels more like Tetris in the sense that you have to react quick and stay on your feet to do anything properly. Whereas I wish that it was more about speed and seeing what's coming up and winding properly through canyons, and you lose some of that with the way that this game is designed. But that said, the mechanics are awesome. I like this game. I like the feel of the craft as you're flying, and especially the boosts and just kicking ass and taking names. But as I mentioned, I mean, that racing aspect is a small part of this, at least leading up to it. Admittedly, this is a first impressions type thing. I haven't beat this game. At the very least, the first hour of this is very intensely this first person thing. And when you're third person and you're doing all these tasks and menial things to kind of get yourself where you need to be and find your ship and fix your ship, every time you enter a building, it's not open world. You can't just go wherever you want and walk into a place and have it be there. Everything kind of loads. So if you want to exit any one place, it kind of freezes, goes black, and puts you in this new location as if you just exited some building. And when you do that, it always says, hey, just so you know, you're about to go full VR, MR's about to disappear, make sure you have a big enough play space. And that was fine the first time it happened, but 12, 13 times in, I was beginning to ask myself, how many times are you going to do this? Why can't you just let me play this game? It kept telling me, and I found it a bit redundant. I think that at the point I am now in the game, it's probably mostly racing. It's going to be much more fast-paced stuff that I want moving forward, but I'm sure, based on how this has gone so far, that anytime I upgrade a ship or in between races, there's going to be more of this going into the shop and picking a new thing and fixing it and upgrading my vehicle. And it's going to be a lot of this repairing stuff and talking to people and having conversations I don't care about, all the while kind of waiting to get into the next race. I think that's how it's going to be. I can't say for sure, but that's what it's been like so far, and I expect it's going to keep up. I do wish that there were moments in this where you're racing and you're going under a tunnel briefly or under a fallen structure, and for a moment you can't see your ship, you just keep going and eventually come out the other end. Fine. But I do wish that, I mean, the MR is fine, it's cool, but I really wish this had been like a first person thing to where I had a view of what was oncoming. I don't like the clipping and how everything kind of materializes 1 second away. And if nothing else, I do wish that there was this thing where you're flying, fine, it's third person, things are materializing, good. But anytime it got tight, the walls began closing in, it would be cool if your view kind of and snapped into almost a first person thing, or at least like right over the vehicle, so that you had this real granular tight view and fully immersed with those little movements as you were weaving in and out of canyons and rocks. That's what I want. I want that. And so far they're not giving it to me. It's kind of a bummer. In the end, I'll say that the character animations are incredible, the voice acting is phenomenal, the racing mechanics and just how the pod racers behave is expected, and it feels comfortable, and I've been here before, and it's cool. But it's not multiplayer. It's not multiplayer, it's all AI and bots, and so, the replayability, I think, would have been immense if it had offered up a multiplayer racing with your friends, and we don't have that. They didn't give it to us, and it really kneecaps this game in the long term, I think. So the graphics are phenomenal. I enjoy driving this thing, but I feel like MR is kind of a gimmick in this instance to where it's unnecessary outside of walking around. If I was actually driving a pod racer, I would have preferred to have been fully immersed, close up to the racer, and in a granular way, weaving in between rocks and just feeling the speed. I feel like it's a missed opportunity, but the game on its own is fantastic otherwise, and I'm glad to have a pod racer game. And I'm happy to have a company like Lucasfilms, creating more mainstream content. That's what it's going to take to kind of expand the VR user base, and I'm happy to have it. So again, if you guys want this, you'll find it down below. Save 10% off. It's a great way of supporting my channel, and you save money. Thank you to my members, who I really appreciate. I cannot do it without you. I wouldn't want to. And you can join members today by clicking right here. My current members receive this through early access. We occasionally also do marbles, which is a way of us saying thank you and giving back on occasion. It means a lot to me that you guys take the time to do that, to subscribe, and to join us over there. Thank you again to VR Rock for sponsoring this episode. I really appreciate them. Find their link down below in the description and save that money as well. And that's all I got. Godspeed.